Today is the day we are going to find out if Aaron Judge will dethrone Shohei Ohtani as the AL MVP. A lot of people are saying that Ohtani still has a chance, but in my opinion, I think that Aaron Judge, he all but wrapped it up after hitting 62 home runs. We're also going to talk about the fact that the Mets, the Yankees, and potentially the Astros are going to be investigated by Major League Baseball. So sit tight, I'll put all the chapters and you guys can figure out where everything's at in the video. Let's get started. Now, before we talk about all of the investigation stuff and Ohtani versus Judge, I do have to give some credit where credit is due. Both Sandy Alcantara and Mr. Justin Verlander are unanimous Cy Young picks. So if we take a look at Sandy Alcantara, he almost threw 230 innings. So the fact that he threw 6 complete games and still had a 2.28 ERA, that is absolutely mind-bending. Now, if you guys want to see the voting, we can see that Sandy, again, just like Justin Verlander, we'll talk about him in a second, he got all 30 first place votes, and in my opinion, he deserved it. Some people are saying that Julio Urias was disrespected, and same with Zach Gallen or a couple other guys, but one player in particular caught my eye. Edwin Diaz got a second place vote, and I kind of thought to myself, is this blasphemy giving Edwin Diaz a Cy Young vote that's top 5? And then I looked at his stats: a 1.31 ERA with 32 saves, 118 strikeouts and 62 innings. That converts to a 17.1 strikeouts per 9, and maybe this is blasphemy, but I'm going to go ahead and say it out loud. The Mets do not make the playoffs, or at least do not finish in first place, without Edwin Diaz in the back half of that bullpen as their closing pitcher, because he was coming in the 8th inning sometimes, he would close it out in the 9th. You could basically turn off your TV and understand that the Mets were going to come away with the W because Edwin was back there doing his thing. So for me, giving him a second place vote, I wouldn't have done that, but to say Edwin Diaz was a top 5 pitcher in the National League last year, or at least top 5 most valuable, you could probably make that argument over guys like Carlos Rodon, and I'm not going to say Aaron Nola because he was vital to the Phillies making the World Series, but Edwin Diaz getting a second place vote, I think I'm actually okay with that. But shout out to Sandy. The Marlins have a really good pitching core. Luzardo looking really good in the second half, and then they have guys coming back like Sixto Sanchez. Moving over to the AL Cy Young portion, we have Justin Verlander joining one of 11 pitchers in Major League Baseball history to have 3 Cy Youngs under their belt. And if I'm doing some baseball trivia, I think that's Carlton. I think that's Carlton, and this is Jim Palmer, and that is Tom Seaver. So if you're a little bit older, please correct me if I'm wrong, but Randy Johnson, Greg Maddux. Justin Verlander is a unanimous Cy Young pick. We can see that he got all 30 votes. We have Dylan Cease, Alek Manoah, and Shohei Ohtani rounding out the top 4. And then we have Framber Valdez, who did not get a single first, second, or third place vote, which I guess kind of makes sense considering the 3 guys, or I should say the 4 guys ahead of him, all had monster seasons. But Framber, I mean, he carried it into the postseason, and again, the Cy Young is a regular season. So good thing they did not take that into account, because you could probably make the argument that he did not have a better season than any of these guys, but I wanted to kind of spotlight him because coming into the postseason, he was one of the more underrated pitchers in baseball. He broke out. He's going to be one of the more talked about pitchers going into 2023, but a big argument right now, Alek Manoah versus Shohei Ohtani. They essentially had the same season, but Ohtani put up the same stats in about 30-ish less innings. So Manoah, he was a dog, a workhorse, but did he deserve third place over Ohtani? You guys will have to let me know, because Ohtani was special. And speaking of Ohtani, let's talk about these 3 humans. Well, should I even say 3 humans? Because Jordan isn't from planet Earth. I think that Ohtani is from wherever Superman is from. And then Aaron Judge, I mean, where did he come from as well? None of these guys give the impression that they are human beings, but Jordan, I do have to keep it real. He is not going to be in the consideration to an MVP. It's between these 2 mutants right here. Ohtani, if we take a look, the offensive stats, they're still really good compared to the rest of the league, but compared to Aaron Judge, who had 177 base hits, he had 62 home runs, an AL record. He passed Roger Maris, 131 RBIs. He hit 311. He almost won the Triple Crown. He had a 11-11 Make-A-Wish OPS and a near 11 WAR. The reason why he had an almost 11 WAR is because he is a plus defender in center field and right field as well. Ohtani, he's got the pitching side, obviously 200 and let's just say 20 strikeouts, a 2.33 ERA. He was top 4 in the Cy Young. Like, again, one of the more impressive seasons we've ever seen, the most talented player in the history of baseball. But let's not forget that Aaron Judge, he was balling out there in center and right field, kind of playing center field on the fly. Not that it's a whole lot different than right field, but a lot of people don't give him credit for being one of the better defenders in all of baseball. He's got a cannon of an arm. Ohtani, he doesn't play the field, so where Ohtani lacks, Aaron Judge kind of makes up, and vice versa, because I mean, obviously, Ohtani's a pitcher. Let me know in the comments, who do you think is going to take home the 2022 AL MVP? Is Shohei Ohtani going to be the defender? Is he going to repeat and be back-to-back? Or is Aaron Judge finally going to get his MVP? I mean, he should be a two-timer. No offense to Astros fans, but Jose Altuve stole it from him in 2017. I will die with that opinion. I don't care. You can be offended. Jose Altuve, he has all but saved his reputation, and honestly, going into 2023, I feel like the booing is going to be a whole lot less, but he stole that from Aaron Judge. I'm sorry. Not really. All right, so let's go ahead and try and explain what is happening between the Mets, the Yankees, and this fella right here, Aaron Judge. So I'm going to go ahead and read this right here. Essentially, I've already covered the first half. It's between the Mets, the Yankees, and Aaron Judge. So an article published on the Mets Television Network's website on November 3rd said the Mets would not bid against the Yankees for Judge. That is why they are in trouble, because according to this right here, the CBA states that neither players nor clubs can make comments to the media about the value of an unsigned free agent. So I know they didn't talk about specifically the value of Aaron Judge, but they did talk about publicly the Mets television program. So it's not like the owner was doing it, or maybe they were. So apparently, according to Ken Rosenthal and other reporters, Hal Steinbrenner and Steve Cohen, the owners of the Mets and the Yankees respectively, they're going to have to turn in text messages and emails to see if they were communicating about Aaron Judge behind Aaron Judge's back, because way back in the day, there was actually a collusion case against Major League Baseball and the owners, that owners were working behind the scenes to try and talk to each other and say, how much are you going to give that guy? What are you willing to give that guy, to suppress the market of free agents? So they are doing everything in their power to avoid that. And this kind of gives the impression that maybe two owners were talking about a free agent, and that's a big no-no. Speaking of no-nos, Jim Crane, the owner of the Astros, is back in the news because he said that Verlander is seeking a deal similar to Max Scherzer, who signed a 3-year, $130 million contract with the Mets a year ago. And again, you're not allowed to make comments to the media about the value of an unsigned free agent, because let's say Justin Verlander wants more, and you can't make these comments. You just cannot do it, Jim Crane. And I don't know if Jim Crane is a cool guy. I've never met him. I don't really have a ton of opinions on him. Does he have a big head now because his team just won the World Series and they're kind of on a redemption arc right now? I don't really have an answer for you guys, but considering Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer have kind of had a similar career path, they both have 3 Cy Youngs. He's 39 years old, coming off Tommy John surgery, but he just had a 1.7 ERA. He won the Cy Young. So should they give him the same value as Max Scherzer? Maybe, but that's not up for us to discuss. That's not up for Jim Crane to come out and say, because in all honesty, 130 divided by 3. Max Scherzer was making $43.3 million. Maybe Justin Verlander wants 45 on a 1-year contract, or maybe he wants 44 on a 2-year contract for $88 million. So Jim Crane, Hal Steinbrenner, Steve Cohen, I know it's probably all in good nature and they have good intentions. They're not trying to collude, but can you just stick to the CBA and just kind of lock the key and throw it? Just keep to yourself, bid for the free agents that you want, and do it the proper way. That's all I have to ask.